So, Joe, tell me about your very fetching T-shirt here.
Yes, thank you very much. This T-shirt, which I should say was designed. I mean, the T-shirt is taken from a graphic of a symbol that is in the interior of Newgrange. If you were standing, you probably know Newgrange. Yes, I mean it's a mound that has a rather large mound on the River Boyne, in the center of a bend in the River Boyne. And it has a passage, about a 60-foot passage, that and then a window above the entrance to it, to the passage. At this time of year, around the winter solstice, the rising sun shines in to the end of that chamber, and end of that passage. And if you were standing at the very rear of the chamber that ends that passage, and you were looking right here, you would see this symbol. This symbol gets lit up, and it's alone on the stone there. So its position there makes it clear that this is kind of something in the inner sanctum. This is a very serious symbol. There's a similar symbol, if you're familiar with Newgrange, the entrance stone also has a tri-spiral. It's actually 3 double spirals. But it's slightly different from this. And what happens at Newgrange around, and it's happening now. If the sun can get through the notorious Irish weather, then this morning in Ireland, the sun shone in and reflected light showed this symbol, and there were people in there. As you know, the Irish government has made it possible for ordinary people to be in there for this incredible experience through the lottery that they hold.
We're now inside the passage tomb here at Newgrange, and I'm joined by Professor Tom Ray, who's an interest in astroarchaeology, and he's from the Dublin Institute of Advanced Studies. Tell me, Professor, what would the people who built this chamber 5,000 years ago, what would they have seen?
Well, they would have seen something quite different from what we see today. 3,200 BC, when this monument was built, the tilt of the Earth's axis was a little bit different than it is now. I think most people know this tilt gives us the seasons. It gives us our winter and our summer. The tilt then was a little bit larger. The net result of that was that the days, the shortest day of the year was a bit shorter, and the longest day of the year was that little bit longer. It also meant that the sun would have risen a little bit further south on the shortest day of the year. Now, what's very interesting about Newgrange is, I think most people know about the roof box at the entrance, but they mightn't realise that as they walk in, the floor rises, such that the actual floor here is level with the roof box. And that means that when the sun rose 3,200 BC, the light would have actually reached across the floor and way back into the chamber there. Nowadays, we have to wait about 11 minutes before the sun actually enters the chamber. The result of that is that the sunlight ends up more or less in the middle of this main chamber here. So the builders of Newgrange actually built it so it was perfect for sunrise in 3,200 BC. Nowadays, of course, we can do it with modern equipment very, very easily. But for somebody from 3,200 BC to try and actually determine the point of what we call the winter solstice would have been difficult enough. But it does indicate that they were extremely intelligent and very civilized people.
What happens at Newgrange is that the sun penetrates this belly-shaped mound at this one time of the year. And I think that one of the things that's happening there, one of the meanings of that, is that this is, it's a mating. And that's a fairly clinical word. I think it would be better to call that this is a love. It reflects the love between two people, that desire that is love, that when it is consummated, and when the lovers are male and female, and under certain conditions, a child is born, a child is conceived. So it is celebrating the way in which life works. And I think that's one of the meanings of this symbol. This is the male, this is the female, and that is the child.
The symbol is sometimes called Triskela.
Well, Triskela is, I think, is sometimes used for anything that is three. I actually haven't seen Triskela used specifically for this. The tri-spiral is the couple that excavated Newgrange, or led the excavation, Michael J. O'Kelly and his wife Claire. In the book that they wrote about it, they prefer the word tri-spiral. It's not. Sometimes you hear this called a triple spiral, but as they point out, each of these is a double spiral. So it's actually 3 double spirals. So I suspect, I'm not sure of this, but I think the word triskela is a more broad term that would be used for anything that has 3. And as you know, the having 3 is just it's an enormous presence in Irish culture and Irish heritage. Even at Newgrange, for example.
Is this the symbol? The shamrock is the usual one that we have for Ireland.
Exactly.
Is this the symbol that Patrick took and put on the Christian message to, or was it the shamrock? Or
Well, I certainly have thought myself that this is the shamrock, yes, and that. So, in other words, that the shamrock that Patrick used goes very deep back into Irish consciousness. This is 5,000 years old, and Patrick came, some 500 years A.D., so 1,500 years ago. So you can see how long it is between Patrick's arrival using the shamrock and then and when this was built.
This idea of the circular movement towards the inner is a Celtic symbol that you see elsewhere. In Switzerland, you see it actually in places like Crete. Is there any suggestion, and I've heard the suggestion before, that it's like an inwards journey from the birth to the inner journey of internalization? Is there any story behind that, or is that just too wild a speculation?
Well, I think at this point, Donagh, I don't know about I haven't heard a specific story that would go with that. But we're talking about 5,000 years ago. There's a lot of stories. I would say one thing: 5,000 years ago is much earlier than the Celts in Ireland. The Celts are usually felt to have been about 1,000 BC, someplace in that time frame. So this is a lot earlier.
And this predates the Egyptians? Almost.
Yeah, it predates the Egyptians. I saw a date that said about 500 years before the pyramids. It predates Stonehenge by about 1,000 years. It's very old. I think it's something that we should be aware of. These are our ancestors, and that at that point in Ireland, there was obviously a culture that had enough. First of all, that they had enough to eat, that they could support the building. And Newgrange is just one of several of these monuments built around the same time, of places that indicated a very high degree of, first of all, of organization, that they could do it, that they could bring people to do it, and also of a very sophisticated view of what the universe is. This is a cosmology. I had, if I might say this, I had a couple of years ago a Mayan elder who was looking at just this symbol, actually, said to me, this is the Maya. They have an incredible astronomical and mystical view of the world of their own. And he said to me, looking at this, he said, this was given to your people. It's different from what was given to my people. And he groped for, I'm finding I can't say it. So I'll just say this, what he said about it. He said, this should be your university. And I do think that that's true of these places, that we, as the descendants of the people that built these places 5,000 years ago, should be looking to them, should be meditating on them, should be looking to the stories, just as you are, about them, and trying to understand that what was it that they have to tell us. It is interesting that they're coming into human consciousness again for the first time, I mean, they always were people in Ireland, as you know, had stories about these places. The fairies lived in these places. All of these places were sacred.
Tuatha De Danann and places.
The Tuatha De Danann, they're a wonderful story, and those are very worth looking at in terms of studying them. Those stories are very worth looking at. And just as you were saying, what stories do you have about these? Because the stories will, who knows how old those stories are? I think that one of the things that our ancestors had was an incredibly good way of preserving the history, the knowledge of the people. You know, first of all orally, and then writing it down, and their preferred medium was stories. I am aware that the local people that living here did observe, yes, and I know of one that I have been to. I've actually been to it on the winter solstice. It's down on Mount Hamilton, which interestingly enough has an observatory at the top of it. And in a park in Mount Hamilton, a local geographer, a man working there, discovered this. There's a line of oak trees, and oaks are very old. And these oaks, they've done the kind of dating they can with them. They predate the coming of the Europeans, and that line of oaks lines up with another oak tree on a ridge in the distance, and if you stand on the line made by those oaks, the sun rises right behind that oak tree on the winter solstice. Or maybe it's the summer solstice. I think you have to stand someplace else for the winter solstice. The man has found all kinds of alignments. So I think you're right. I think that all over people did this. We talked about them. I mentioned the Maya. It was a very common thing for people, unrelated to one another, to be observing these sun feasts.
What do you suggest now with the Irish dimension, the Irish diaspora? What should we be doing on a day like this?
Well, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. I'm going to be at sunrise. I will be at Twin Peaks, watching the sun come up over the East Bay. I think, observe. It's what moves you. I think. I wouldn't suggest to people. I would suggest to people, and I will hope to do some more of this. The Irish people, as you know, Donagh, you're actually from Ireland. The Irish people have an incredible relationship with the land, a love of the land that goes back, how long? Who knows how long it goes back? And it's something that the church has adopted. So, for example, Croagh Patrick is a place of pilgrimage. Holy wells are places of pilgrimage. That's something when, as you mentioned, the diaspora, we have migrated. There has been the migration that started with the famine is the greatest migration out of Ireland that has ever happened. And about 11, the number of Irish people who claim Irish descent is about 11 times the conservative number, the number of people who live in Ireland. And I think that the Irish people, that one of the things they should do is where they are living now, is to learn what their ancestors did in Ireland, to learn to love the land, to learn to find the spirits in the land that sustained our ancestors for generations. Newgrange itself, it's where when you look at it, it's built on a bend in the river. That river is important. The Irish name for Newgrange is Brunabonia. And Bonia is the River Boyne. Brunabonia is the mansion of the Boyne. So there is in all of this, there is a sense of a natural place. So suggesting people, I think you should follow your instincts, but many of us are beginning to realize that these holidays of the sun, these festivals of the sun, they're very simple. They can be very simple.